Hi, everyone. Welcome to Data and Donuts. My name's Aaron. I'm here with my friend and colleague, Erik Cooper. Today, Erik Cooper and I are going to talk about a little bit more systems wide. What's currently happening and what's going to be in the future. And before we get to that, I'd like Erik to share a little bit about himself.
Sure. I'm glad to be back. So thanks for having me, Aaron. I have been the Dean of Planning, Research, and Resource Development at Sierra College for most of a decade. However, I am here today as the Assistant Vice Chancellor for Data Visualization, Data, Visualization, and Research at the California Community College Chancellor's Office, and I've been there now for a little over 9 months. So that's fun and exciting, and pleasure to be back.
Excellent. And so you did just touch on where you're working currently. Describe what you're doing at your department at the Chancellor's office.
So, for folks who are familiar with IR, particularly in the California community colleges, working for the California Community College Chancellor's Office in the Office of Innovation, Data, Evidence, and Analytics. So that is a three-part office that has MIS, has applications and sort of internal internet, and then it also has the research office. And so I am mostly overseeing the research office, although coordinating and collaborating really heavily with both the MIS and the application development team. Um, on the surface of it, the research office, you can think of us as kind of the folks that create the products, the outcomes of all the data that comes in from all 116 community colleges, all 72 districts, and coordinating data and research for things like the CTE outcome survey, for the launch board, dashboards, for a lot of different things that come through in terms of data and products within our offices. So it's a fun place to be, exciting. It's never a dull moment. I used to say that there's no such thing as a research emergency. Now I know better. There are, in fact, research emergencies, particularly as we're getting calls from like the legislative analyst's office, like, hey, we need this thing. If your college didn't get called by the legislative analyst's office, you're welcome, because it's because the research team at the chancellor's office did some of that for you, or Department of Finance, or sometimes literally the governor's office. So it is an exciting place to be, getting to help answer questions about what's happening in the California community colleges.
Excellent. And in addition to the emergency research and a few things you've already mentioned, what are a few projects that you're proud of that you've worked on over the last 9 months?
We've got so many things that we've done that in some ways are really, really small, and others that are just really, really big and really, really important. Weirdly, one of the ones that I am proudest of is it was a day where the community colleges did not make the headlines. And it was literally a couple of months ago, there was the Joint Audit Committee for the California Community Colleges wanted to know about what's going on with the community colleges, and it was going to be a big deal. They wanted to do a full audit, and they asked our team, really, they asked the chancellor's office for some data and information, and we had a really short turnaround to provide that. Um, we put in some long days, some long hours, and kind of bullet point gave them exactly what they were asking for, and told the story of why is this data important and why is it only part of the story. And that explanation was really well received. It was really, really helpful, and consequently, we didn't make the news that day. Which is one of those really odd things to talk about, but really, really proud of the work that the team did, because we had 6 people, I think, all contributing pieces of that in a very short period of time. In terms of other things that are maybe less dramatic, that are really kind of proud of, the legislature obviously gives us money every year, which we are thankful. Legislator staff, if you're listening, thank you. We do appreciate the money that we get, the funding that we get. But often we are given just sort of broad guidelines of how that money can be spent. So really happy with some of the work that the research team has helped do um, for the Native American Student Support Program, for how that grant is not only going to be funded, but how we're going to monitor the success of that program going forward. So really happy with the work that we've done there. Uh, Regular reviewers of this channel, all of you, will be very familiar with AB 705, AB 1705, some of the money that's now coming with AB 1705. So really happy with some of the work that we did in creating the funding model for that grant funding. And again, looking at how we're going to monitor for improvement going forward as we are, implementing those reforms in the math and English and ESL sequences going forward. So really happy with some of that work. Day to day, always happy with dashboards. Pretty excited about some of the things we've got coming for the launch board. I know this is going to getting into one of your next questions. But for future projects, we're doing a lot of collaboration with UC and CSU on transfer. So really excited to frankly have their data, getting to see what happens. I mean, I know, again, if you're an IR person, you're going to be very familiar with the National Student Clearinghouse. You're familiar with sending your files off, getting data back and seeing, oh, my student enrolled. Cool. But we now know through this data exchange who applied, who was accepted, who was potentially redirected to different UCs or CSUs within the system. So we now have kind of that missing data piece of not just what happened when they were with us, and then, hey, they ended up at UC or CSU, but now we know, well, who tried to go from one to another? Who didn't? So we're really focusing in on some of the questions as it relates to transfer. What are some of the ADT programs where we're not having a lot of transfer, right? We haven't really looked at that a whole lot. If folks are familiar with the Vision for Success and Goal 6, the regional goals, looking at that in terms of the regional look, like how does this look for the Central Valley in terms of transfer? Do we have a lot of students that are applying to UC, CSU? So that's a future project that we're currently working on. Actually, as soon as we finish this call, I'm going to a meeting to talk about some of the early results, some of the things that we're seeing. So that's a project that's coming up that I can share. What else? What else, Aaron?
And
What's on your
so
mind?
are there any other future projects? I know you touched on that one, and you're talking about dashboards, and you mentioned working with the launch board. So are you going to be recreating dashboards, or what does that even look like for the chancellor's office and the data you're producing?
We're looking at a few different things. I'm not gonna talk about the launch board because that actually has such a long runway that anytime we want like a change in the launch board, it's literally like, okay, we're gonna make a proposal to change it this year, which now means we need a full development cycle, which means anything we propose right now, you won't see as a change for somewhere between 6 and 18 months, depending on the change in the development cycle. So ignoring that for a second, we're looking for a few changes to Datamart. It's an older tool. Folks know it, they love it, they use it, right? But it's older. It's been around since the 90s. We're looking at some changes to some of the data that's out there. That brings up whole additional questions. So we're going to be trying to get some feedback from the Student Equity and Achievement Plan advisory committee. We're going to be looking at our Student Metrics Advisory Committee, which has representatives from the RP group and others on it. And talking about, well, what does it mean in terms of data disaggregation and what level do we want to have publicly facing? Because if you look at Datamart, there are a handful of the dashboards that do allow you to disaggregate by race and ethnicity, gender, age group, etc. But it's really just a handful of them. And they tend to be the ones that are sort of the least FERPA implied. And so having some conversations about, well, what can we do in that space? And do we need to take sort of the same extreme approaches that we do with the student success metric, where we not just have, like if we've got a small number of students, we suppress that, but not only in the student success metrics, we suppress that smallest group, but then we suppress the next smallest group or two to make sure that the smallest group has their privacy protected, right? So do we need that level of complementary suppression? So like there's these kind of crazy conversations that we're starting to have about such like a little thing about like, okay, can we make this little change to Datamart? On the easy side, we're looking at taking away some things. I'm not going to blow any secrets for you, but we're looking at getting rid of some things that are a little bit old and outdated. We're also looking at, we collected a lot of data. So thank you, colleges. If you're an MIS person or an IR person who does MIS and you happen to be watching this, thank you. But there's a lot of data that we collect that we don't really publicly display or use. And we're looking at getting that back out into people's hands. Um, so as an example of one that we've proposed that I'm willing to talk about, looking at the credit for prior learning. That's a relatively new data element for us, right? It's some colleges, including Coastline, for example, do a lot of credit for prior learning. Some colleges do a very small amount of credit for prior learning. So getting that information out so that it's publicly available, people can see it, they can see what are the kinds of things that people are looking at. And a lot of the emphasis on credit for prior learning, of course, was about veterans and sort of honoring the training that they're getting in the military. Well, we get a chance now to document, look, these are the colleges that are doing that really successfully. They are working with their partners, with their services, to make sure that students are getting credit for the training that they've received. So some of the things that we're looking to get out into Data Mart, pretty excited to have that as a future project. But weirdly complex because of the politics, right? It's not always about just can we do it. That's pretty easy. We've got a good MIS team, they can do it. But having conversations about, should we do it? How should we have access? How do we make sure colleges can verify that the information they submitted is correct? All these sort of these political considerations that come up when we're talking about data, especially publicly available data. It's been fun being part of those conversations, and I didn't realize sometimes how long those conversations would take. Even though working at college, right, everything takes a long time. Chancellor's office, there's always another group that we need to go talk to make sure that we've got that decision sort of fully vetted before it becomes public.
And one of the things I've noticed when we speak of Data Mart, it was about a year or two ago, or maybe even longer than that, but we'll say I noticed it about a year or two ago, is there was an option that you could, in the past, you would just get to select the population of students, and it could be, California students or who's ever been gone through the filters that were applied at that time. But now you can run it on every student submitted to MIS. You can run it on a variety of filters that are built into the Data Mart. So a lot of times your college may be seeing like this isn't matching our numbers like one for one with everything we've uploaded in the universe. But now you can. And I think that's been a testament. I shouldn't say like everything in the universe, but everything that's legit available, having that option to actually go a bit further to see the broad capacity by which we've supported and served at our colleges. I thought that was a really awesome opportunity that was built in. And I know that's something that's happened over the last year or two.
Yeah, and that's actually one of the positives that came out of the pandemic. As you know, pandemic kind of broke how we report some of our student types and student classes through MIS. And in order to show that on Data Mart, they had to reconfigure Data Mart so that it could show all students. So as a positive, as a silver lining to this sort of world-changing event, we've got a better Data Mart as a result of it. So
There you go. And still, I know we're wrapping up a little bit, so I wanted to go to my final question. The bonus question of this year is, what is your favorite all-time, that's a hard one, favorite all-time television or streaming show, or whatever you're currently watching?
I don't know, favorite all time is a tough one.
Well, why don't we go with currently watching? I'm still working the bugs out of that one.
Well, I will give a favorite, and it's an old favorite. Actually, PBS Nova. Right? I've watched that since like I was a little kid. It's still something that like the new episodes come out, I'll stream it online or watch it with the kids. So I'll
That's
give you
cool.
that one. I bet you don't get a lot of responses on that one. Currently watching, I finally started watching Stranger Things. Really into that right now. Um, I'll say actually I've been watching a lot with my wife and kids. Queer Eye. So the modern take of Queer Eye for the straight guy, right? Really enjoying that show. Um, but I'll leave it. I'd leave it at that in terms of like currently watching. We can go Stranger Things and Queer Eye. So spending some
So
quality
interesting.
time.
So what season are you on in Stranger Things?
Just started season 2. And so
Okay.
I mentioned the family. I am the only one who wants to watch that show. So I have to sort of time my watching episodes to where it's like just me watching. Um, so it'll be a couple weeks between each episode. It takes me a while to get through things.
Okay, cool. Well, there's a summer project for you. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Eric. Thank you for sharing all the cool things about what's happening in your department at the Chancellor's office, and we look forward to the new and innovative things coming forward. So I hope you have a good rest of your day and as you go on to more meetings. So I'll talk to you later, friend.
Thanks, Aaron. Take care.